Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the council meeting for Wednesday, the 21st of June 2023. Great to have you all here. And could we please start our meeting with our karakia, please, which is in front of you.
Members of the public that are audience, to those online that are listening and watching in, and obviously to councillors as well. We do have an apology from Councillor Proctor, and also noting that we've got Councillor Jennings zooming in from far afield. So can I move acceptance of those apologies? So second by Deputy Alan, was in favour? I think it's carried. Thank you. Just noting also the latest Chief Executive. Chief Executive is on the way, but is being representing, if you like, the operational side of things. Of the local government sector at the Future of Local Government report presentation today, but is on our way back from Wellington as we speak. So our first item of business this afternoon is to acknowledge and thank the trustees of the Adventure Park Trust. And so welcome to Pam, Glynis, Jenny, Gary, Chris. Great to have you here. This is an opportunity for us as a council and a community to thank you on behalf of everybody for the work that you have done over the last, and we know that the park has been pretty much 21, 22 years old now, but the trust has been in operation for 15, 16 years of that time. And us all, I'm sure, are extremely proud of what you have done and, the way the park is looking these days. So first of all, I'm going to offer an opportunity if you want to say anything, Pam, or anybody else, you'd be welcome.
Okay, right. I'd like to introduce who we've got here, if I may. We've got Jenny Warren, who's a trustee. We've got Glynis Easton, a trustee, myself as a trustee, and we have three other trustees, Diane Denton, Kathy Litchell and Kat Lewis, who are unable to come this afternoon. We have here our maintenance person, Chris Clark, who is responsible for maintaining the train and making sure it's running. Can you hear me? Right. And we have Gary Gloag, who's responsible for the signals. So I must mention too that Raywin Woodley, I asked her to come this afternoon, but she is not well enough currently. So she is a really sterling person that we've had for years, especially organising the train drivers, which can be sometimes a bit of a headache. And she does it really, really well. So I want to acknowledge Raywin. She would have been here if she could. Over the years, we've had probably about 15 trustees in those 15 years. And we have had untold people helping with the train. We used to develop the park as a trust. We had access to providing funding. And the council did the maintenance and actually installed a lot of the equipment. So we worked together over those years, and I think we can all be very proud of what we have over at the park. And it just got to the stage where the lease was shortened, and we couldn't have got all the equipment off the park if we had to. So we approached council and said that we'd like to disband the trust. So that was probably 2 years ago, was it, Jenny? Yeah. So we're in the process of disbanding the trust, and in the meantime we have a community group, which is Levin Rotary Club, will run the train, because council actually has never had really anything to do with the train. They'd like the volunteers and the trust to do that. So we Rotary will use it, will oversee it and run it. And we have 3 Rotarians, and our mayor is a Rotarian as well, so hopefully that will continue. And we have the park there as it is, which is a real credit to everyone. Often people leave little notes which are quite funny and say that that park is amazing, and all the comments on the sites, like, what is it?
TripAdvisor.
That's it, TripAdvisor, are very positive indeed. Now, does anybody like to say anything? Any of the other trustees like to say anything?
Thanks, Pam. I don't think it'd be remiss, well, it would be remiss of us if we didn't acknowledge the contribution that Collis and Helen made to the installation and instigation of that park. They had the vision and the wherewithal to be able to, make it happen, and it wouldn't have done so without their. So it's interesting that knowing Collis, and he would be extremely proud of and Helen of what has been the legacy that is now left. And Arthur gave me a couple of words yesterday about the initial vision of the park was to build a park that will provide fun and exciting physical challenges for the children and young people of Levin in a lovely park environment with facilities for families to enjoy. If the site is situated on State Highway 1, it should also provide an attraction for visitors to Levin and create a top-class facility for which Levin will become known in the wider region. I think you've more than accomplished that, and some. Just thank you on behalf of everyone for what you've done. And I'm sure council will soon know about it if we're not doing a good job in maintaining it and keeping it up to scratch. We'll get told by yourselves and the rest of the community, but we'll take pride in it as much as you have done. So thank you. Thank you. Carry on with your day. No problem. Okay, we have one item for public participation, and that is Lyle. Welcome, Lyle. So you know where you're going? You've been here before? Yep. I can't tell whether that light's on. Can you just shift that water bottle as well, so that I can see whether your light's on or not? Oh, well, yes. So the right-hand button on that microphone. Thank you.
How's yours? Is that all right?
Yes. Good. So just introduce yourself, and you're all go.
Carry on. Well, thank you. My name is Lyle Brenton. I'm the president of the Foxton Beach Community Centre and Health Shuttle, and I'd like to thank you, Mayor Burney and councillors, for allowing me to come and speak to you this morning. You'll have to excuse my notes. My wife won't allow me to go anywhere without notes because she says I do waffle. So if I've got notes, then it makes it easier for me. So later in the meeting, you're going to be discussing an application for funding from the Foxton Beach freeholding account. And the Foxton Community Board have passed a motion to approve at their last meeting, and I'm here to support their positive belief in us as an essential service provider in our area. Our request is for the purchase of a new health shuttle with wheelchair access, which will give us the ability to transport people with different medical requirements. I have sent a further notice through Grayson to you, which I believe you have read with extra notes, so I won't go over that again. It's not really just about the purchase of a vehicle, which is extremely important for our service, but also about our whole package that we offer at the community centre for the residents of both Foxton and Foxton Beach. Currently, Foxton Beach and Foxton have a population of around about 5,500 people, and in Foxton Beach, of those people that live there, over 50% are over the age of 65. In Foxton, over 35% of their population is over the age of 65. In Levin, you have 25% of your population over the age of 65. So in your long-term plan for our area, you are proposing a further 500 sections are to be made available. I don't know if it's been approved yet, but it's in your plan to add these over the next 10 years, which could see those figures at the beach doubled or more. And with the 19,000 people around that you have in the Levin area, and Levin being a bigger city, has facilities that our people at the beach in Foxton don't have. Medical, well-being, transport system, buses, trains, taxis. Unfortunately, we don't have these facilities at the beach, and our ageing population don't always have access to vehicles or people to take them to their medical appointments in either Levin or Palmerston North. With having 3 shuttles that are on the road most of the time, we do round about $3,000 a month just in petrol alone to service our people to get to their appointments, not just medical but also well-being, which might be just shopping, going getting their hair done, getting their nails done, whatever. We consider that to be part of our community ethos as we go through. So, and I know you've read the application letter that I put forward to the community board, so I don't need to elaborate on that for you. So a lot of our people are isolated at the beach, and without our community centre and our 3 health shuttles, would find it difficult to make appointments for various things that they do. We have over 28 volunteers who operate at the centre, both driving the vehicles and also manning the centre on a Monday to Friday basis, 9 to 3 every day. So in your own council age-friendly community strategy, which was adopted in March 21, and community outcome strategy, these are a few of the salient points that you have mentioned within these strategies. I'm sure you're all aware of them. Vision of older people in Horowhenua are empowered to make choices enabling them to live well and age well. Horowhenua is a district that embraces its older residents as a highly integral part of the community. Opportunity for participation, capacity building and social connectedness. Health and well-being. Community safety. Community belonging. We build collaborative relationships with service providers. We are a service provider, providing it voluntarily. To finish, I would just like to say that this request is from a fund that was set up for the benefit of residents of Foxton Beach. We are an integral part of Horowhenua. Help us to keep our residents safe and well. I'd like to thank you for the time just to add these few comments onto an application you already have, and I would also like to thank the council. We have had contributions from your community grants to help with our centre, and also from the community board, and as a group we really appreciate the help that you give us to help enable us to provide the services to our community. So thank you all, and I am open to questions if you do have any at this stage for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Lyle. Any questions, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Lyle, for that presentation.
Thanks, David.
I usually sit on the board, as you know, but I was unable to make the last meeting. At the board meeting, I understand that Mr. Chambers from the community board asked if you would be able to realise the vision of purchasing the van if you were to get 12,500 rather than the full amount. Could you just address that, whether that would still work for you if you were to be given half the amount?
If we were given half the amount, we would suffice. We would then take money from our own reserves that we have at the centre I noticed that in the council comments it was suggested that we asked for 100%. Nowhere in my application did I ask for 100%. I asked for assistance and to buy us a vehicle. It was the community board that suggested giving us 100%. 100% is perfect because it allows us to keep our reserves for other services that we provide. But yes, in answer to your question, David, we would still be able to purchase the vehicle for 50%.
Thank you for that answer, and also for the wonderful work that you and the community does.
Thank you.
Councillor Grimston.
Afternoon, Lyle. I'm really keen for you to just briefly and succinctly just speak to the wider community impact that the wider centre delivers. Obviously, this request is considering a transportation option, but
Yes.
I'm just keen for you to briefly touch on the number of other community factors or services that you deliver from the centre so we can take a more holistic view
Sure.
of the request.
Yep, thanks, President. At the centre, in the last 12 to 18 months, we have increased the facilities that we have there. We have increased, and I know that you're aware that we have had monies from the community board for the building of a new garage for our shuttles. That has just had the roof put on it yesterday and will be completed within the next week or so. So our shuttles will be housed very nicely in those. At the centre itself, we have 2 health clinics there. For the last 9 months, we have been a supporter for New Zealand Health as a rat test and a mask distribution centre there, and we're listed on Health New Zealand as part of that. We also, every Wednesday for the last 9 or 10 months, we have completed COVID and flu vaccinations at the centre, which haven't been done anywhere else in our area, and we're getting up to 50 people a week being vaccinated at the centre itself, which is really cool. Stroke Foundation are also coming in once a month from Palmerston North, making it easier for our local residents to have meetings with these facilities rather than having to go to Palmerston North. We have those coming down. The hospice in Palmerston North are talking about coming down as well too, having clinics here for people who are using hospice services. We have a great contact with the Cancer Society. A lot of our people that we take to Palmerston North are cancer patients. We take them up there to their renal appointments, their other radiation and chemotherapy, and we're on the road at 5:30, 6 o'clock every morning, delivering them to their appointments and waiting for them to finish around about lunchtime and bringing them back home. So we do door to door, we wait, and because we don't always have the appointments, we have to get our other shuttles out of operation, get our other volunteers in to drive these shuttles. I was just in at the medical centre at Foxton this morning, and the lady there was telling me that they have so much response from people who we transport just from the beach or even Foxton to their medical appointments there, with otherwise they wouldn't be able to do it. We take people 500 metres down the road from the supermarket to do their shopping. We travel shopping with them, we walk around the aisles and then drop them back home again. We have a health nurse comes in every week into the centre operating there. We also have Easy Living from Palmerston North talking about the disabled appliances people can use. And we have Plunkett looking to start up a centre there for young parents. We have breastfeeding services from Palmerston North coming in once a month, talking with young mums. We do all sorts of things like that. So when the pool is operating again, and from in the past, we take our local residents to the pool to do their exercises and swimming. So whatever people in our area want, we are there to serve them. And I can honestly say that the 28 volunteers I have work tirelessly to make sure that we keep people to their appointments and service the whole community for their needs. There are some other things too, but that's the main ones that we sort of do, and we're looking to use our clinical rooms there even more in the future to service the needs of our people as they arise. We will go out and get people to come in and service them at the beach. Thank you.
Thanks, Lyle. Really appreciate your time.
Excellent.
And obviously, please pass on our thanks and acknowledgement to all your volunteers that help out in that space, and the wide-ranging support services that you do offer. And for those that don't know, Lyle is the town crier for the Palmerston North City. That's why you probably don't recognise him in this get-up, because he's dressed normally, but I go to a number of functions where I see Lyle, and he always gives a great... he, being a Horowhenua resident as well, has its advantages, I'm sure, in terms of that. But thanks for everything that you do, Lyle.
You're very welcome, and thank you for the time this morning, and I appreciate everything that you do for our district as well too, so thank you.
Yes. Okay, so we will be dealing with that item later in the proceedings. We will now go to any late items. None. Declarations of interest. Any to Councillor Brannigan.
Thanks, Your Worship. 8.4 is Regional Committee updates in terms of the emergency management item. I'll step away from that.
Yeah, noting that there's no decision or anything, it's just information sharing. Yeah, exactly. Okay, thank you. So we now move to confirmation of the minutes of our council meeting on the 31st of May 2023. I'll move that the meeting minutes of that date be accepted as a true and correct record. Seconded by Councillor Boyle. Any discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So moving into our agenda proper, 6.1, the mayoral report. They didn't arrive. You didn't talk to him, Julia? No. Tammy? Didn't talk to Tammy?
No, I didn't. They were going to be here.
Were they?
I think they finished that.
It's gone now. I had hoped that our Mayor's Task Force Jobs coordinators might have sort of taken a bit of public kudos again. Grayson just tells me that they had intended to be here, but knowing both of them, they probably thought, if you can find them, yes, but don't make it, don't lead them by a prod or anything like that to make sure that they turn up. So can I just move 2.1, 2.2, that this report be received and recognised as not significant. Seconded by Councillor Boyle again. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We will talk about rates rebates later, the remit, but I had hoped that the Mayor's Task Force coordinators were here, because this is definitely a success story that we should loudly and proudly put across out as many as every opportunity that we have. We are the leading district in the country on this. Our success is now over 110, which is a huge, sort of amount of numbers that the council have put into work. Is really, really great. Okay, so just then moving to 2.3. The council endorsed the community group appointment of Councillor Mike Barker to the Levin Community Patrol for the remainder of the triennium, seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen. And thank you, Councillor Barker, for offering and volunteering to step into that role. I went to the AGM a couple of weeks ago, and they're looking forward to your contribution that you will make. And they will probably ask you to be a formal committee member as well, rather than just a liaison person, just warning you. But all those in favour of that recommendation, thank you. Against? Carried. Welcome, Tammy. Julia, were you hiding somewhere? So please turn on your right hand button. I've just been briefly telling council around the success of what you two have achieved over the last year, and I know that we had employer recognition or thank you last week. And you told a really interesting story there, Tammy, around, some of the challenges that you have, and it's not just about finding people jobs, but all the other things that you wrap around these people. It would be just, I think, great for councillors to hear a little bit more about that thing. So thank you.
Thanks. So Julia and I help young people who have left school early or at the right time and aren't quite sure what they want to do. They are the NEETs, not engaged in employment, education or training. And we have sort of seen that even at the end of school or dropping out at 16, 17, there's a lot of basic customer service qualities that the youth are missing. They can't shake hands, they can't make eye contact. We've come off an age of everybody wearing masks, they're not used to smiling, dressing appropriately, these sorts of things. And so we asked a local provider to put together a confidence in you and your customers course, a 3-day short course which would give them those skills to sit up straight and smile and take their hood off and take their hat off, wear their hair appropriately, these sorts of things. Part of that was them turning up on the first day wearing something that they would feel comfortable wearing to a job interview. So I took these 8 females and males to farmers and spent the day there trying to get them to buy appropriate clothing for a job interview. I told them that there was no constraint around budget. They just needed to find something that they felt comfortable wearing. And this was mind-blowing for these 16, 17-year-olds to be in farmers in the first place. They all online shop. To pick up a blouse as opposed to a hoodie. And then go into the changing rooms, have strange people offering to help them try on clothes, remembering that the course is about customer service. So the whole time I'm saying to them, how do you feel with that person coming up and talking to you? Or do you think that person was rude? We had situations where we were followed into the changing room because the kids were in school uniform and they assumed that they were shoplifting. And how did that make them feel in a customer service sense? And so one particular female found a really great outfit, and we have a really close relationship with Life to the Max, the social worker in schools, and she was there with me, and I said, do you think that the underwear might be a situation as well? Because it isn't just about, okay, we put on a shirt, we put on a pair of pants and we're going to a job interview. There is so much more that goes into that. And I could see that she was kind of cowering away a little bit. And Stacey, the social worker, said, yeah, I think that might be a good idea. And I'd spent a bit of time with this young woman. I said, hey, you know that, like, it's quite normal for females to go into the lingerie section in Farmers and to have a chat with the customer service person there, and that you can have a bra fitting, and explain to her what that meant. And she said yes, which was just phenomenal. Like, 16-year-old, low confidence, probably never had that kind of conversation with anyone at home. And so she had a bra fitting, and she has now her very first bra that was actually brought for her, not a hand-me-down, not something that she got from the op shop. It's her bra, and the difference in her confidence in putting on the dress or the blouse and turning up to that course and not holding her school bag or a jacket over her chest because she felt embarrassed for wearing a black bra with a white shirt or something really simple, is just enormous for these young people. And the conversations that we were then able to have about the customer service experience, the confidence that she would need to go to a job interview, what is actually required of someone to walk through your door, your lots of your business owners, is just monumental. And yeah, that's my little story. Thank you.
Anything you want to add, Julia?
I was just going to say we do work with our clients on an individual basis. We build their confidence by understanding what they want to achieve in their life, like what they want to do, or where their passions are. But then we also do more broader training programs like traffic management. We've got that coming up at Kauiu Marae next week, and other more qualification-based programs that can build skills and build confidence and get people onto a really positive pathway.
What these two do is much more than just find people's jobs, as you've heard. They actually wrap around a heck of a lot of support service, and a lot of it is about those life skills that they have missed out on or not acknowledged in the past, and the difference they are making is life-changing in many, many respects. So personally, I thank you, but I just want everybody to make sure that they're aware of the difference that, in fact, council is making in some respects to people's lives, and what you're doing is just really unbelievable. So thank you, appreciate it. Cheers. Okay, let's move on. Members report back on New Zealand Planning Institute conference. Councillor Tamihana, thank you for a wonderful and comprehensive, extensive report. I think you've set the standard that everybody now, the expectation will, you've raised the bar considerably, but anything you'd like to add to your report?
No, just thank you for even putting it here on the table. But my final sentiments really are, if you get the opportunity to attend such occasions alongside our kaimahi, then I think it's a fantastic opportunity, and I think we should always report back on the good things we see out there in the wider spaces. So kia ora.
Kia ora, Justin. Look, it's great that, and it's fantastic you see the value now of attending these sorts of wider network things. So I'll just move 2.1, 2.2. The report be received and recognised as not significant. I'll let Ms. Councillor Tamihana move that. I'm happy to second it. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Yes. And great to see the promo that Horowhenua wasn't needed in terms of all those acknowledgements of all those that are in our planning area that were also at the conference. It's great to see. So now moving to 6.3, the chairperson's report for the Te Awaho Foxton Community Board. Move 2.1, 2.2, that the report be received and that the is recognised as not significant. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Any questions or comments around this report? Councillor Tukupa.
Thank you, Mayor Bernie. I realise our Chief Executive is not here to answer the question, and it's under the Chairman's Report 2.3, the request for our Chief Executive to do a bit of work or provide a report around the MavTech building, and I wondered, is she, Ross would like, okay, thank you.
I can talk to that. Discussions at the board. One of the things I spoke to that night, after discussions with MavTech themselves and through direction from the chair of MavTech, Marie, this was removed from the agenda that night. And I think Justin was there, but it wasn't discussed that night, and it's not something that will be continued with at this time. There's other work happening there. So.
Mr. McCorkindale, this might be a question for you in terms of the Foxton Business Breakfast and the report that's coming from the Horowhenua Company. Just wondered whether there was any sort of progress on that, and their request is for a community plan. Is that going to be initiated, or is that further on?
So the desire is to move towards developing a community plan for Foxton Beach, and noting that there is a Foxton Beach community plan. The idea is to do this under the umbrella of Foxton Futures, which has been going through a little bit of a reset process, having been heavily focused on the river and the projects associated with that, not losing the importance of those, that they'll continue to play in the future development and progress of Foxton, but also recognising there's some other pretty important opportunities that exist at the moment, and one of those being that in the not too distant future there's going to be a road that delivers everyone from Wellington right to Foxton, and we want to try and get ahead of that and certainly maximise and get the thinking right in terms of how we plan for that. So one of the ways we propose to do that is to move forward with a community plan and to involve the community in that. We're still just putting some shape around the detail of how and when, but the desire is to move into that space fairly quickly.
Thank you. Look forward to that progress. Councillor Tupapaua.
Just subsequent question to that regarding the Foxton Futures. Would that be coming back to council at some stage? Because when that project or Foxton Futures was initiated, it was largely government funded, and council gave a contribution, and obviously we see the work that was done there along the loop, and it's great. But these other things now, or even what's to come next, I'm not sure where the budget's at, and I'd like to see further information.
Just to make a brief comment, so there are some connections to Foxton Futures, for instance, that features within the Horowhenua Blueprint, one of the actions in there. As we know, one of the things we want to do with the blueprint is bring that forward to council in terms of an implementation plan. And like the blueprint, a community plan or Foxton Futures, that won't all be about council funding and delivering. It is about council playing different roles. In some cases it might be the enabler, in some cases it might be the facilitator. Yes, in some cases there might be things that council decides through its either long-term plan or annual plans to be a funder of. So quite comfortable that what we're working towards here will fit in. There certainly will be that the idea where I guess there is going to be a financial commitment or a program the council is going to prioritise and support, that clearly needs the support of this council.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 7.1, Local Government New Zealand Annual General Meeting 2023 remits. Move 2.1, 2.2, that the report be received and the matter be recognised as not significant. Seconded by Councillor Young. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So we have 11 remits in front of us that we will go through item by item. I'm looking for, obviously, a clear direction for delegates, being myself, in terms of how you think we should vote on these matters. I don't want this to turn into an almighty parliamentary sort of explosion of debate, but there should be, obviously it would be good to have a clear outcome in terms of that direction. So, Councillor Boyle, did you have initial comments?
I was potentially wondering if we could move all of them in favour as one. Cool.
I appreciate your expediency in terms of time management, but these are issues that we all should have a view on, regardless of whether they, and it may well turn out that, we vote all in favour, but everybody should have the opportunity to state their view. So we will move to the first one. Sorry, Councillor Tupapaua, did you have? Yeah. 2.4, that council votes in favour, against or abstains On remit 1, which is that LGNZ engage directly with the Minister for Building and Construction to advocate for a change to the current joint and several liability framework, including examination of the MB policy position, statement risk liability and insurance in the business sector, make the case for alternatives and changes to joint and several liability through updating policy advice and engaging with industry groups. Any Deputy Mayor Allen?
I will move it.
Move it? No. Anybody wish to discuss? Well, I don't know whether we actually need to do that. What I was just going to do was in favour of that recommendation or not, rather than actually move every as a resolution. Just we support or we don't support or we are abstaining. So I don't know whether we necessarily need a resolution. Any comments though around the resolution? So those in favour, raise their hand. Would be easiest, I think. Against? All right, voted unanimously. Thank you. 2.5, remit number 2, that council votes in favour, against, abstains. That LGNZ advocate to central government. Well, this is our remit, so I won't repeat what's in the paper. And I'd be very surprised if anyone votes against this now. So I'll just raise your hands if you're in favour of supporting this remit. Thank you. All in favour? 2.6. The council votes in favour, against, abstains on remit 3, which is that LGNZ publicly lobby all political parties to increase Crown funding for state highway and local road maintenance budgets, consider and pursue other avenues, including the Office of the Auditor General, to seek resolution of the issues facing the country in relation to the systematic rundown of our national roading infrastructure. Any discussion? Those in favour? Against? Okay, unanimous again, thank you. 2.7, the council votes in favour, against, abstains. Remit 4, which is that LGNZ ensure local government elections are fully accessible by advocating to central government to make local government candidates eligible for the Election Access Fund. No comments? All those raise their hands in favour. Again, carried. Thank you. 2.8. The council votes in favour, against, abstains on remit 5, which is that LGNZ explores and promotes options that enable councils to make greater use of co-chair arrangements for standing committees, joint committees and subcommittees. All those in favour? Against? Sorry, Justin, were you were for? All right. Seems consensus is that we vote for. Thank you. 2.9, the council votes in favour, abstains, against. Remit 6, which is that LGNZ advocate to central government to enable councils to determine penalties for parking infringements. All those in favour, please raise their hand. Against? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there is a bit of a either or there, but the consensus is that we vote in favour of that. Yeah. Okay, 2.10, the council votes in favour, against, abstains. Remit 7, which is that LGNZ acknowledges the government's stated support for major uplift in all urban bus networks nationwide under New Zealand's first emission reduction plan, calls on the government and opposition parties to commit to increasing investment in public transport for rural and regional communities to support access to essential services and amenities, vibrant rural communities and just transition to a low emission transport system. Everyone in favour, please raise their hands. Against? Unanimous, thank you. 2.11, remit number 8, that we vote
support or against abstain that LGNZ investigates the creation of a LGNZ independent national process to handle complaints or concerns, ensuring fairness, protection and accountability in local government, works with the Local Government Commission to implement findings from its September 2021 report, Local Government Codes of Conduct. All those that are in favour of that remit, please raise their hand. Unanimous again, thank you. 2.2, remit number 9, that LGNZ investigate and report to members on ways to help councils and communities that are struggling with the time frames in the earthquake-prone building sections of the Building Act and council policies pertaining to priority thoroughfares. Those that are in favour, please raise their hands. Thank you. Supported. 2.13, remit number 10, that LGNZ asks the government to amend the law to enable councils to make contributions to an elected member's KiwiSaver scheme. All those in favour, please rate. Sorry? Yes, you can talk to it by all means. Councillor Buck. Continue, Michael.
Yes. I think that basically, yeah, it goes kind of to remuneration if you like, but you know, I think there's way bigger things to worry about, to be honest, and it doesn't rate with me, it's not a thing. So, yeah, I get that there's a thing where, you know, you could say, well, you know, the remuneration from councillors doesn't attract people because basically it's so low, and this would probably add something in attractiveness for that. But, you know, we're not here, I don't think we're here for the money. So, no, just go no. It's not relevant, it's just, it's not a thing. It's like, there's so much other stuff we need to focus on, and that's not one of them, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. I might be fourth term, but when I started, you know, councillors were on 25,000. It got as high as 27 at like 3 years later or something like that. Now it's at 38. I think that's okay considering the size of our population and sort of the income levels and the fact that, well, at the moment there's a real struggle out there, and it may be around for another year or so. So at this stage, no, I wouldn't support it, because where does the KiwiSaver money come from? Out there. It's not, we don't have reserves and things, so it's an add-on, and I'm not prepared to support it at this stage.
To be honest, I tend to agree with that. We're just adding costs to the organisation that aren't necessarily people. As individuals, we have the choice as to whether we, you know, contribute to our own superannuation schemes if we want to for our retirements. Yeah, I too won't be supporting this. Councillor Boyle.
I mean, personally, I'm not particularly fussed. Everybody can make voluntary contributions, that's fine. But there's no statement in this about increasing funding at all. My assumption would be the funds still come from the same origin pool of funding. KiwiSaver has a reduced tax take, so there's less money going to central government, and there's a better outcome for elected members in this, which does incentivise this ever so slightly more. It definitely still doesn't make it worthwhile. And thirdly, money sitting in a KiwiSaver account is generally invested in the New Zealand economy better than money sitting in someone's pocket. I've got no issues with 2% of our salaries going into a KiwiSaver account, provided it still comes from the same pool. Yeah, an increased cost I wouldn't support, but there is no call for an increase of costs here.
Councillor Grimstone.
I think the wider consideration to take into account that there are a whole lot of councillors from around the country that potentially their council work could potentially be their primary source of income. And on that basis, just like anyone else has a primary source of income, I think they should be entitled to have the option of Kiwi Stadium paid for them. I think ultimately this is what this remit talks to, is giving councils the mechanism to use that.
Okay, so those that are in favour of supporting this remit, please raise their hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those that are against. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sam. Sorry, Councillor Jennings, did you? He's against. So the vote support is against. I mean, the support's not against. You understand what I mean, I'm sure. Okay, 2.14, remit number 11. The LGNZ calls on central government to take action to reduce council audit fees by revisiting the scope and requirements of reporting and auditing on councils, conducting a review on the practice of audit in councils, and work on best practice guidance to streamline the process. This review should examine whether reporting and audit requirements of councils are consistent with the level of reporting and audit that is required of other public entities. I'm sure we've had enough talk about audit fees over the last little while. Those in favour of this remit, please raise their hands. Right, unanimous support. Thank you very much. That was the most easiest and smoothest remit agenda items that we've had. And now we just need to move to 2.3. The Council authorises the Mayor to vote as the presiding delegate in accordance with the votes agreed in this resolution, and notes its previous resolution to appoint Councillors Horowhenua and Young as alternate delegates. Seconded by Councillor Tamihana. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Right, moving to 7.2, which is the Water Services Reform Reset. To discuss the Water Services Reform, the recent reset by the government, and affirm the position of this council in relation to the reform. Welcome to the Chief Executive to the table, and also while Catherine and David are coming, can I just move 3.1 and 3.2, the report be received and the matter be recognised as not significant. Seconded by Councillor Horowhenua. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Welcome, Catherine.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Worship and Councillors. Today I'm presenting the Three Waters Services Reform Reset Report, and as His Worship had said, the purpose of this report is to discuss the recent reset by the government and affirm the position of this council in relation to the reform. This is quite important as during the current triennium, this council has not had the formal opportunity to do so. I take this report as read and would like to take a moment to summarise the report and the proposed options. The Three Waters Reform Programme for Horowhenua District Council commenced in late 2021. HDC is a current member of the Communities for Local Democracy, C4LD, and by aligning with C4LD, Council holds the position that it is against the government's current reform proposal in its current state. Despite the opposing stance, our council has been actively participating in the reform programs and requests for information from the Department of Internal Affairs, or DIA, and the National Transition Unit. In December 2022, the Water Services Entities Act came into effect, giving legislative power to the Three Waters Reform and the mandate. And in April of this year, the Minister for Local Government announced a reset to the Three Waters Reform that will result, and as we've seen in the new legislation that's landed last week, will result in a number of changes to the reform proposal, and the most significant being increasing the number of water entities from 4 to 10 that are aligned to regional council boundaries. During the Water Services Entities establishment period, the DIA have had monitoring and oversight powers of the decisions that councils make pertaining to the Three Waters activities, and the DIA has confirmed or approved this council's draft long-term plan amendment and the inclusion of Three Waters, as well as the live-in water supply resource consent. Therefore, the DIA is supportive of council's future Three Waters program of activities, and I do believe that this is a positive outcome for Horowhenua community, as these projects will be transferred to the new water services entity. And just to mention again that after this agenda was presented on Friday last week, the final piece of legislation for the government's revamped affordable water reforms was introduced to the House. The Water Services Amendment Bill changes the Water Services Entities Act 2022 to replace 4 water service entities with 10, and I'll report back to Council with what that means via our task force and again to Council for submissions. So just going through the options that have been presented in the paper today. So option 1 is to proceed with transition activities as required by the NTU, National Transition Unit, and guided by legislative powers. Approve $340,000 of additional borrowing to enable council to participate in the transition activities. Retain membership in C4LD, therefore aligning with the position of C4LD, and retain the current position that is held by council. Support the inclusion of Horowhenua in the Manawatu Whanganui entity, but explore if there is a possibility that Horowhenua could join the Wellington entity. And the advantages of option 1 is that it creates a greater sense of certainty for council staff and the community. It will ensure that council is adhering to legislation. It allows council to continue to make business improvements and plan for a business without the Three Waters activity, and continue to have a dual voice with the Communities for Local Democracy advocating on behalf of. Disadvantages for this option as seen by the officer, as council's position is affirmed by being a member of C4LD and aligning with its stance without affirming its own view. There is an additional cost as well, the $340,000, albeit temporary with future funding likely, and I'll speak to that in a moment. Option 2, proceed with transition activities as required by the National Transition Unit and guided by legislation. Approve $340,000 of additional borrowing. Withdraw membership from C4LD and take the position that council supports the current proposal from the government, and support the inclusion of Horowhenua in the Manawatu Whanganui entity, but explore if Wellington is an option. The advantages, it creates a greater sense of certainty for council staff and community, will ensure we're adhering to legislation, allows council to continue with business improvements, and given the very high workload forecast for the LTP proper, a certainty of council's position will mean that staff can be focused on the forward work program and what needs to be included in that and beyond, and acknowledges that this council can uphold their own voice and advocate for themselves if required. The disadvantages is that there is an additional cost, but hopefully we can get that back with future funding likely. And option 3 is proceed with transition activities as required by the National Transition Unit and guided by legislation. Decline funding the additional borrowing of $340,000. Retain membership in the Communities for Local Democracy, and retain the current position that is held by this council and reaffirm post 2023 general election, and support the inclusion of Horowhenua in the Manawatu Whanganui entity, but explore if there is a possibility that we could join the Wellington entity. Advantages will ensure that council is adhering to legislation throughout this period, and continue to have a dual voice with C4LD advocating on behalf of. And the disadvantages, council's position again is affirmed by being a member of C4LD and aligning with its stance, creates uncertainty and reduced support for staff, places additional strain on staffing and business as usual. Council will be unable to make business improvements as it would like and plan for a business thoroughly without Three Waters activity, as resourcing will be limited. So the officer recommendation is for council to either adopt option 1 or option 2. This will allow council to adhere to legislation and participate in transition activities in full and plan ahead. support staff who will transition and pursue business improvements and ultimately prepare the business to operate without the Three Waters activity in the future. I acknowledge that the two options included in the officer recommendation both include a request for council to approve loan funding of $340,000 to participate in transition activities for the 23-24 financial year, and those activities include overheads, consultants such as change management, asset management, legal advice and internal charges. We're confident that this loan funding will only be called on if the government does not announce an additional transition support package for councils in the coming months, and we are expecting that. In the case that these funds are called on, we anticipate it will be returned in the DIA National Transition Unit no worse off funding debt settlement process. I also want to mention that if council opts not to fund transition activities, there will likely be an impact on the ability of officers to advocate for and where possible support our iwi partners in full regarding the water services reform, as there will be limited capacity within the business. I now welcome any comments or questions.
Thank you, Catherine. Any questions of the report? Councillor Tamiharu.
Thank you for the report. No real questions, but the last point is the point that I was going to ask around today anyway. I think that's a really important point to go back to the NTU and actually say that it does put council in a predicament if we're unable to actually engage our iwi partners in an appropriate manner. So I'm not too sure how you address that, but I certainly would like this council to advocate still that it isn't inappropriate, that a process of such nature that relies on our Māori community engagement and input, but not willing to resource them to an appropriate level to be able to appropriately engage. Kia ora.
Councillor Brannigan, and so noted.
Thanks, Catherine. In terms of the 340,000, potentially, that'll be debt funded for a start. If that funding is realised in terms of being repaid, where would that come? That would come from the transition, I presume, and would that then go back onto the debt that will repay the debt?
Yes, so the $340,000 that we're requesting would be debt funded, and if called on, would be returned. So we would go through a debt settlement process with the National Transition Unit, and that debt would be taken over by the National Transition Unit. If we didn't need to call on $340,000, that would be because we've been successful in obtaining transition funding support through central government. So hopefully it doesn't get to that point.
Councillor Tupara.
Could you just confirm for me membership to C4LD one-off fee, small fee, and under cost other than the 340,000, there's no signal of it. We have to, in order to stay, you have to pay with C4LD.
Yes, we haven't received any signal that there requires further advancement of payment to C4LD, but we also haven't, so from what I understand, they still have a small amount of funding left for this reset, and post-reset we're not sure, so we would wait to hear from them to see what their position is post-reset.
And I could probably add a little bit more to that. There's no intention of C4LD to request any further funding at this stage. They do, as Catherine's indicated, there is still some money in the pot that they believe will get them through to at least the election. Post-election, obviously, might be a different story in terms of what is on the table. But at this stage, no, nothing further. In fact, C4LD's view is pretty much, let's wait for the election to see what happens. But keep it in front of the public. So, I mean, you've got the recommendations in front of you. Ultimately, the difference between the two is we either stay in C4LD or don't stay in C4LD. And I see little benefit in actually withdrawing at this stage because we've continued to be, an interested party in that. So while, there's not much happening, I see it as advantageous for us to be able to continue to do that.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm just making a comment. Yeah, sorry. Excuse me. Yeah, you questioning my chairing, Councillor Brannigan. Councillor Tukapua.
Oh, I thought that meant you were moving option 1. I'll second it if you were.
Yes. I'll move option 1, seconded by Councillor Tukapua, and I don't need to make any further comment. But I do have the right of reply, okay? Any further discussion or debate?
Really, just to agree with you, Your Worship. I see no reason to depart from the CFL 4LD. I'm sure I think it served us well to this point, and changing the direction somewhat to what we were confronted with at the start. So I think it's been well worth being involved in, and we should continue to do so.
Councillor Jennings.
Yeah, look, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did just want to speak in favour of the motion, but I did just...
Sam, sorry, I can't quite hear you.
Can you hear me now?
It might be a volume thing.
Can you hear me now?
Sorry, we're just going to have a look at the screen. Might be a tick.
Can you speak now, Sam?
Yeah, can you hear us, Sam? We still can't hear you there, sorry.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about
it. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You think it'd be all right now?
Can you hear me? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, sorry, Sam, we still can't hear you. Okay, thank you. All right. Councillor Ross.
Just my other comment was I guess it would have been quite good to push back on the 340 grand, but I guess it's probably not going to achieve anything. But that's just probably the Irish in me or something, or Dutch one too.
Okay, so option 1 has been moved and seconded. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3 against. Councillor Boyle will be noted. Thank you. The motion is carried.
Thank you. I'll be going to this, Your Worship.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, David. Okay, moving on to 8.1, which is the procurement report over $200,000 and agreements. Move 2.1, 2.2, that the report be received and recognised as not significant. Seconded by Councillor Barker. All those in favour? Against, carried. Welcome, Mrs. Brady and Ben, to the table. Anything you want to add to the report?
I'll just do a quick introduction. Yeah, good afternoon, councillors and Mayor Bernie. The procurement report as part of the agenda today is the first of its type presented to council since the adoption of the procurement strategy and policy in September last year. The report provides information on agreements signed for procurements over the value of $200,000 and is intended to be included within the OPR going forward and be publicly available in an external portal in the future. As this is the first time this report has been presented, we are anticipating it to develop or change over time. Are there any questions or comments on the report?
Looks like there's no questions or comments. What I just wondered, it's a pity that Councillor Jennings is unavailable. We can't hear as a member of the procurement committee. I wonder whether he or Councillor Olsen want to make a comment. Councillor Olsen.
I don't have too much to say. Like obviously I support this process, and I think it's a pretty robust procurement strategy. I think I'd say with what we're sort of working through, and I guess just having that ability to, I suppose, just to move when things are there is important. So we're not dragging the chain as far as the ability to act. But yeah, other than that, it's pretty much as it is.
Councillor Grimstone.
Yeah, no real questions, but I think the fact that this is in a report in a public environment speaks to the point of the relationship, the transparency and the trust that we want our community to be aware of in terms of the council decision-making process, from not just who gets contracts and to what value, but also how these services were procured. So I commend the report and thank you for the work in getting it to this stage.
Ben, probably just a quick question in terms of the amount of 200,000. Is that too high, too low, about right? Do you think, in terms of what we should be? How was the 200k reached?
Sure. The $200,000 was reached based on the delegations that have been given to our group managers. So anything above that comes to the procurement review group, which we see there. So that was just used as the basis to rely the report on.
Thank you. That makes much more sense. Yes. Okay. Thank you. We're now moving to 8.2, which is the interim organisation performance report. Can I move 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3? Oh, no, sorry. We'll leave 2.3 until after there are questions or comments. So move 2.1, 2.2. Seconded by Councillor Olsen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Any questions of this report? Noting that it is only an interim report and is still evolving, we will see, obviously, is it 3 months? Every 2 months, so we'll see next council meeting will be a full report. Councillor Tukapua.
Sorry, I want. Is that able to, what's the word? The page that we're on. Sometimes when we go to resolutions, it usually pops up. But anyway, I'm on page 83. Is that right? Okay. I've got query around the maintenance spend 1.3. Obviously, as a variance or contributing factor to the bigger variance, 5.8, and just a little bit of explanation around that, and the I can't remember what the professional fees was. Yeah, is that okay? Could I get just a bit of detail there?
My apologies. I was trying to be tech support and had missed that first question. So if you don't mind repeating it, that would be great.
So it's just a little, just expand a bit more on the maintenance variance of 1.3 million.
I wonder, in introducing that, it's probably worth reflecting that this is obviously end of year to 30th of April. And so obviously since then there's been an enormous amount of work to understand our position as of 30 of May and where we're going to land 30 June. So it's probably worth commenting on that first, Jacinta, and then talking specific to the maintenance and professional services question.
Yep, sure. And as the maintenance professional services sits mainly in Daniel's space, I might give him a moment to pull the answer together on that one. But in relation to the overall picture, both from a capital perspective and an operating perspective, we as an organisation have worked really hard from the time that we last presented what potentially was the operating deficit of potentially up to as high as 2.9 or 3 million. And have brought that back to where that now sits at from an operating perspective, where it's sitting at approximately 1.9 million, with 1.6 million of that sitting in the interest space. So really, that interest is not something that we can control. We can do everything we can through good treasury management to do the best we can to minimise that level of interest rates. But what we have been able to control is a potentially higher deficit in terms of that overall operating position for the year. Some of that, and we'll come to you in more detail near the end of the financial year with some more explanation, is within that picture, we hope that will be a little bit less because there has been some more spending in the maintenance space in the Three Waters area, where rather than doing renewals work, we might have focused more in the maintenance space. So Dan and the team have done some great work and with the Alliance in terms of looking at that spend, making sure it sits appropriately either in maintenance or in capital works and getting it in the right spot. So some good work's been done in that space. But mainly where we might see that 1.6 for interest and up to sort of 300,000 in terms of an overall deficit for the year. The majority of that is likely to sit in that Three Water space, and it's because we've done more maintenance or work in that space and in the operational space than we have in the renewals space. So it's likely, like we did last year, that we'd come to you as part of finalising the numbers for June and request permission to fund any additional operating deficit in that water space through debt. That makes sure from a council perspective that when we move to transition, that we're ensured that funding will come back to the council in terms of that debt funding. If that decision wasn't made by this council, that might be a more difficult decision or a negotiation with the NTU at the end of the year. Apologies, one more. So that professional services is largely, as we went through the annual planning process, the long-term plan amendment process, you noted that there was approximately 900,000 in terms of the iwi payments that we've budgeted for more specifically for the long-term plan amendment. It's the same thing in terms of this financial year. Those that were not budgeted in this financial year, but the decision was made that they were more appropriately sat within the operating budget because they weren't specifically tied to capital projects. So where in the past they might have been allocated to capital projects, the decision was made that because they're more of an overall relationship payment and that it wasn't appropriate to include them within the capital program. So that's the massive chunk of the reason why there's more spend in the professional services space.
But emphasising that during the reforecasting process, where essentially we've challenged the business to make sure our operational deficit is made up of as less money as we can control as possible. Those overs, we've found a whole lot of unders.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, and so just so I've understood what you've just described, from end of April, which is this result on paper, versus now nearly the end of June, how you can claw back or recode, shift, from renewals, all that sort of thing, you can now reduce that quite significantly from a 5.8 or 1.6, and really most of that is out of our control in terms of interest, rather than all these other lines I'm seeing. And that's a stark difference in a matter of a month and a bit to get that right or adjust it so it's a better outlook in terms of OPEX. It's well done, thank you, but it looks better. But I think, yeah. And so next year, the next financial year, those sort of overs and unders, will they be reported in such a way so that April will look the same next time, and it's all in its right place, and we don't have to freak out, because that's not a good look there. But to hear now it's adjusted and looks.
So I think it, I hear your council Tukupai, and I think, and I want to acknowledge Ms Straker for her work in leading the right conversations across our organisation around being really upfront with our people around where we're potentially going to land end of financial year, putting the really stark impact that interest rates are having us in front of all of staff, and having those conversations around, how you reforecasted and you said you'd spend what you budgeted. Let's have a conversation about what we really need to do, and what could we not do between now and June, or how can we think about this differently. And it's not perfect, and I want to acknowledge the organisation who have worked really hard to get that down to 1.6 million, and I hope we can stick to it. 9 more days. No pressure, team. But yeah, I think it's about that consistent consistent financial management conversations every day, every week, every month with our people around staying not to budget, but staying within budget.
And I think having that ability in our systems now to look at, for example, at the end of May, look at what in the system it's telling us for each line, each area we're going to be spending between May and June. Does that look about right? In the past you've only spent. So having that analytical ability easily in the system, coupled with people being responsible and asked questions about their individual areas, and then the oversight from the GMs, makes a big difference, I think. And as that continues, as we move into the zero-based budget process as well, through the long-term plan, I think that will get better and better.
So thank you. It's quite a bit of work that is involved to get that all right, in a short time.
I think it also needs to be acknowledged that when we set the annual plan for 22-23, our interest rate assumption at that stage was a lot lower than what it actually materially was, and shows how important that we get our planning and budgeting right in some respects, because here we are a year later talking about a deficit that is really out of our control, but we didn't anticipate at any stage that interest rates would rise as much as they have done. We thought we were doing pretty good, and we were patting ourselves on the back, saying how wonderful we were, and then all of a sudden, here we are in this position, now going to show a deficit in terms of that. It just reiterates how important it is that we're across everything that impacts on our budget figures. Councillor Brannigan, as the chair of the projects committee, might have something to add too.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, we did meet the capital projects delivery steering group earlier this morning. I guess the good news out of that was the team are on target to deliver our capital projects, which is great news, because we haven't historically done that. So, and I think even better for me was that the planning is already up and running in terms of hitting the ground running in the next financial year to carry on that delivery, and there's certainly a lot more to come to the council in terms of briefing or workshop in the near future that Dan and the team are committed to go away and do and bring it to us. So I think some really good news there, and certainly some information will come back to us to challenge us a little bit in terms of how we see the next delivery of projects in the next term. So we'll look forward to that coming through. But again, really good news, But if Paul, anyone who's around the table's got any comments, but yeah, satisfying to see and well done to the team.
Thank you, Councillor Grimston.
So just clarifying the statement, Councillor Brannigan. So we're on track to have spent our $39.5 million as of 30 June.
At the end of June, we've completed $30 million up to the end of May. And we're on track to deliver definitely on track to deliver 35. It's looking good in terms of the analysis that the team have done at a project level, and maybe closer to just over 35, but it's probably definitely approximately 35. One of the key conversations I just wanted to mention that we had this morning was about the fact that we're starting to look at the significant capital program for next year and making that assessment of what's already committed, of which there's close to $9 million in terms of committed works already, what works well in train, and what work is sort of in development still. It's through that conversation, there's a fair amount that we could say we'll set a long-term plan amendment next week if you go ahead with the decision that it will limit at 35. But that will need some conversations at this table and further presentations to council and workshops, which Dan and the team will organise, about what's the highest priority of that 35 million. And then I think we've got $50 million that's assigned from a level for the second year of the long-term plan amendment. So regardless of whether we get all the work done in the first year, we'll be able to do the detailed planning and work so that we're super ready and geared in to complete a $50 million program in year 2, because we've had more time to do that detailed planning in year 1. So I think the way that we're tracking in regards to the procurement work as well and bundling up the program for the community, I think we'll be definitely seeing some improvements in that space in terms of delivery as well.
And in terms of specifically the figure that at the moment is sitting at 35 with a month of spend to go, how does that compare to previous corresponding periods in terms of capital spend?
Yeah, last year was around 29, so it's certainly an uplift, which was the target set. So you're well on track to very close, small percentages wise around that 35 million this year.
Through your worship, probably just reminding council that 35 is the funding envelope that you set us. So you may have picked up on Jacinta's reference to maybe slightly over, and so we just need to work through the process of how we might seek your permission, because that then means it's above my delegations for exceeding our capital program target.
Thank you, Jacinta. Okay, moving to 8.3, Council Resolution and Actions Report. 2.3, did I miss something? 2.3, that having considered all matters raised in the Organisation Performance Report April 2023, that the report be noted. Seconded by Councillor Brannigan. Councillor Tupupa.
You've gone through the capital one, but are you going to cover the top 10 or questions for that? No. Is that all inclusive?
Yes, all inclusive. Okay, yes, if you've got questions around that, please proceed.
Yeah, just a couple quick ones. Kainga Ora, they've got some builds underway. I mean, I'm aware of existing portfolio being upgraded, but actual new, and if so, how many? And do we know how many in train beyond what they're doing right now?
Through your worship, I wonder what we might do is actually invite Kainga Ora, who's been working pretty closely with Blair, to come and do a presentation to council, so they can take you through the work that they're doing, and council will consider an item on its audit paper next Wednesday around some future opportunities as well. But there's multiple kind of projects at play.
Anything else?
And just the meeting that you've got lined up next week, it was mentioned in a previous report around the Three Waters. How soon will we hear about that?
Through you, Your Worship, I'm sure Mayor Burney and I will let you know that. We'll see you that afternoon, right? So we'll let you know how the meeting goes. Of course, we need to allow the Minister time to reflect on our perspective, albeit he's had a heads up on what we're coming to talk about. What I would say to the table is, for those of you who had a read of the legislation that I forwarded in Weekly Words this week, it's probably the easiest piece of legislation to read because it's actually only about 20 pages as opposed to 2,000. The new legislation does not specify the construct of the entities, and so I think that is something we should potentially take heart in.
Okay, so put that motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. All right, moving now to 8.3, Council Resolution and Actions Monitoring Report for June 2023. Move the report be received. And 2.2, recognised as not significant. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Any queries on this report? Chief Executive.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillors, just bringing to your attention on page 95, which is the item 22166. Just want to apologise, that should not be green. Is in progress, it is red, it is off track. The current lease expires September 2023, and at this stage, we've still not been able to progress with finding resolution with the Windmill Trust, but are working hard to do that.
Regional Committee activity update, just noting these reports or these minutes being received. So 2.1, 2.2 that they were received and recognised as not significant. Seconded by Councillor Olsen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Just thought it was appropriate that we do belong to various regional committees, and it's important that councillors and the community have an oversight of the things that are talked about in those sorts of things. So we, in fact, have had meetings in June, but obviously minutes aren't circulated as yet. But are there any queries or questions on any of those minutes? Okay, moving on. 9.1, the proceedings of the Te Awaho Foxton Community Board from the 15th of May 2023. Just moving 2.1, 2.2, the report be received and that we receive the minutes. Deputy Mayor Allen is seconding. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, so we have 3 resolutions in front of us. Councillor Brannigan.
Your Worship, yeah, just if I could move amendments to those to 2.3 to 2.5. If I get a...
Yep. Just deal with 2.3 initially, okay, please.
Yep. Move amendment of 2.5 to reduce... you want my amendment now?
Sorry?
You want the amendment?
For 2.3, yes.
To reduce the funding to the Foxton Beach Community Centre for their life mobility van from the Foxton Beach freeholding account to reduce the funding to 12.5k. Get a second, I'm happy to speak to it.
The resolution now reads: the council approved funding of $12,500 from the Foxton Beach freeholding account for the purchase of a VW Caddy Max Life Mobility van for the Foxton Beach Community Centre, as recommended by as not recommended by the TO. We'll just leave that bit out because they didn't recommend that now.
Councillor Tupper.
Is there a reporting officer that I can ask questions to?
Yep, that's me.
Oh, okay. And oh, sorry, mine's regarding the wharf, which is the next one. So I'll deal with this 2.3 apology.
Councillor Brannigan, you wish to speak to this?
Yeah, thank you, Bishop. Just to explain a bit of the rationale to councillors around the table in moving this amendment. The payment it's unusual for a council to override Foxton Community Board recommendations, but I think this one needs some clarity, and I think I moved the 2.3 to 2.5. They sort of interrelate, but I accept that we can talk about them separately. In terms of 2.3, you'll know that there's a policy around the freeholding account in terms of how we use our expenditure. A number of times, council, community board recommendations adopted by council have gone outside that policy for reasons that they believe justifies the departure from that normal policy. My position on this one is that the Foxton Beach Community Centre, and we're highly regarded by all of us, and we saw from Mr. Brenton this afternoon the work they do, and in no way am I trying to take away from the work they do, because it's valued me more than anybody, I think, in terms of representing that community. Mr. Brenton made a very good presentation to the community board in terms of this funding, and acknowledged the restraint around community board around the freeholding policy and the expenditure around it. He did at no time ask for full funding for the vehicle at all, and did say in questioning from a community board member that they have some funds put aside to contribute to the funding of that vehicle. So collectively putting that all together, I don't believe that there is justification to depart from the policy for this purchase. And I'll relate it back to a number of times that we have supported community groups from the freeholding policy, freeholding account. And two previous times were for the Foxton Beach Community Centre in the past 18 months. And I think Mr. Brenton has again touched on that this morning and at the community board meeting. One was for the purchase of a previous shuttle vehicle, and the freeholding account via the community board resolution paid for half of that vehicle. I think the total cost of that vehicle might have been $37,000 or something like that. So the 50% policy applied to that one. And that was about approximately 18 months ago. More recently, sometime last year, the community centre applied for funding for a three-bay garage. They desperately needed at the community centre on the land that you can recall we've had discussions about. And the community board debated and decided a 100% contribution to that particular project was warranted, and that went through. And I think the justification for that departure from the policy was, in my view, on the table and was quite reasonable, and therefore it was justified and provided. Again, on this occasion, I just simply don't think the justification is there to depart from the policy. The community centre do have the funding to provide their half funding, 50% of the project aligned to the policy, and I'm recommending that that's what we support. Happy for any further debate and have a right to reply.
Councillor Grimstone.
So I'm keen to, I guess, understand a little bit more around how that discussion at the table came about or went, because I'm really mindful that we've got a Foxton Community Board who have made a recommendation to come to this table for consideration, that we've got the ability to adopt whatever, but I'm really keen to more understand, was there some discussion or probing or whatever around the amount required during the debate before they passed the resolution to make that decision to put it up for 25,000. I'd just really like a little bit more context as to that decision-making conversation.
Councillor Brenny.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Gilbertson. Good question. Yes, there was. There was quite a lot of discussion around the volume of funding. The question from Mr. Chambers, I think it was around the policy and the justification to depart from the policy. And he asked that question directly to Mr. Brenton, that if, according to the policy, 50% of the project could be contributed to from the fund, would $12,500 from the policy suffice for them, and would they have obviously other monies to still carry out the purchase? The answer was yes. And I think the surprise in the room, my feeling was surprise in the room, was when the community board decided to give the full funding, where perhaps there was a justification had been established for just the part funding. So it was debated, yes.
Deputy Mayor Allen.
Look, just briefly to add to that, I was not at the board meeting. I'm the liaison councillor at the board. To me, I deliberately asked reassurance from Mr. Brenton tonight to make sure that the community centre is clear that it can find the additional funding. The answer was yes then, as it was at the board meeting, as is recorded by Councillor Brannigan. The community centre has throughout, in all three requests, been very clear but also very fair in what they've asked for. They asked for 50% and were happy with that. I have not heard, unfortunately we don't have the chair of the board here tonight, because it would have been interesting if he could have identified the level of debate and the satisfaction level that he felt as to whether there was some really robust reasoning as to why 100% was given when 50% was asked for. He is not here to address that. Therefore, I'm left in the position where I cannot support a recommendation of the board which is at variance to the request made from the community centre, and when we are actually required to spend money wisely from that account. There are two more recommendations coming up, and as Councillor Brannigan signalled before, they are sort of integrated in terms of here's some money being requested, and we have to be very wise and very circumspect in addressing how much is spent. So although I was not there, it's one of those very rare occasions where I cannot support the board because there is no evidence which compels me to do so on this issue.
Deputy Mayor Allen, I note that Community Board member Noel Fox is in the room. You wish to ask her, are you comfortable if she comes to the table and you ask her that question?
Oh, the excellent suggestion. If Nola,
I don't want to put you on the spot, Nola, but if you
thank you. Good idea, Mr. Mayor.
The right one. The right button. No, the button on the right. The silver button. That's it. So you've heard Deputy Mayor Allen's request.
The debate that was circulating around going to 100% was on the fact that a large number of previous payments out of the account have breached the policy in the last 3 to 5 years. We're not just the garage the previous year, the community board, the lighting that went to the Coast Guard security for their system, and I can't remember what the other example that was given on the night was. But the debate was that they felt that the 25,000 was extremely good value for money when the vehicle was valued at 75,000, and they didn't want to lose it. Personally, I believe while the community centre has the funds, they also have got to put a security system into the new garage, security lighting all around, and that will put pressure on keeping
I don't want to relitigate the whole debate, but I just want to be reassured that the community board discussed this and you've given it some reasoning as to why that. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. Have you a further question, Councillor Burstone, or no? Okay. So, Councillor Tamiha.
Yeah, I'm going to make a couple of comments here. I don't think it's just hearing that too, saying that, because of previous breaches in a policy that we're continually seeing, a policy that this council established. I find it really hard to sit here and have the conversation, given not very long ago we had to breach our own policy to provide $500,000 to a Foxton pool. Potentially that's going to grow again, and we're sitting here today talking about further breaches of a policy, and so I'm not comfortable with it. It would have been really good to have some other options provided from the Foxton Community Board. I sit here myself and say, why couldn't they have traded one of those vans in and got the van that they required to meet the costs that they need with the service that they're providing? And as Councillor Brannigan said, this is not taking away from the incredible work that you do. This is actually about setting a precedent that we can't continue to breach policies we put in place. Why do we bother to have them? And so I'll be quite open and honest today and say that I won't be supporting any of the recommendations from the Community Board, because every single one of them continue to breach a policy that is what it was established for. So, kia ora.
Kia ora. Councillor Brannigan's right to reply. Your question? No, you're right to reply.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for the debate. And Councillor Tamana, note your comments. My reply to that is simply that the Community Board and this council, particularly driven by the Community Board, have for many years now asked for a review and a reform of that policy, because it is no longer fit for purpose. And it's proven by levels of funding that now go into the account, and that the policy was set many, many years ago and it's just not suitable for today. And for that reason, the board has on a number of occasions gone outside the policy. And a policy is a policy. Policies, you can go outside policies. If you can justify a reasonable departure from that policy, legally you can go outside policies. So the Community Board have done that, and by and large I've supported them. Not always, but by and large I have. On this particular one I don't support it, simply because of what you've heard already today. And the policy, and it's no criticism of our current CE, something else she's inherited, but the board have been pushing for this policy to be reviewed now for a long, long time. And it is what it is. So for that reason, I think there's still justification at times to go outside the policy, which I'll speak to shortly. But on this one, I still don't believe there is justification to go outside the policy for the reasons that we've heard. And now we'll go to the vote.
Okay, so we do have, sorry, Justin, you've spoken, and with Councillor Brannigan's right of reply has ended the debate. So I'm going to put the resolution now. All those in favour? If we could have a show of hands, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Against? 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Sam, did I record your vote for or against? 4. Thank you. So the motion is carried. All right, we move to 2.4. The council approve up to $35,000 from the Foxton Beach freeholding account as an exception to its policy to fund the remediation of the Foxton Beach Wharf, noting the current loss of the high recreation value amenity and the potential danger posed by the current condition of the wharf as recommended by the Te Awaho Foxton Community Board. Do I have a mover and a seconder? So Councillor Brannigan's wishing to move an amendment.
And that amendment does that council approve the amount of expenditure the council approve from the Foxton Beach freehold account for the project. Don't need to say the whole words. Back up to the officer recommendation of 70,000. Up to 70,000. If I get a seconder, happy to discuss.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen. So the resolution now reads the council approve up to $70,000 up to from the Foxton Beach freehold account as an exception to its policy, and you've got the rest of that. Councillor Tupapa.
Just questions.
Yep.
Just a few. The first one is around. So I've read this. DOC owns the land. Horizons are meant to be a contributor to this. I can't find much background to what they've done to date. And there's a mention on page 149 that the Marine Boating Club are prepared to make a financial contribution, and if so, what is that amount? I couldn't find it. And then it's almost like, I mean, don't get me wrong, this is our community, and we need to take responsibility, but I wondered, have we already had these 4 parties in a room? That's the question. Have they indicated what part they'll play or how much, and how soon can they do that? Or are we having to accelerate and act alone and hope they'll catch up or do something later? And the other question is, it's obviously urgent. I see the photos. I've actually been out there a number of times. So it's all, yeah. Can you give me some answers, and then I need to... It's only because it's not in the report. I just want some answers.
So what I'll do is I'll set the scene and I'll hand over to Mr. Hester, who helped prepare the report for Community Board, noting that obviously there's a councillor that may be able to fill in the gaps. And probably the comment I want to make is I think this is a really good point of where council didn't put its hand up to be involved in this. This is an example of where the community has approached the Community Board off the back of obviously some significant damage and deterioration to a community asset that council doesn't own. And I know that Mr. Hester has done some work to reach out to Horizons and DOC. But again, a really good example of not our asset, but if council doesn't try to facilitate an outcome, no one else will. And so I'm not saying that to kind of defend any position, but I just want the context to be acknowledged that we didn't hunt for this, that this has come to council, and Sean has picked this up. So I wonder whether Sean wants to attempt at answering some of those questions.
Yeah, the other question too, though, because you are moving quickly, is the structural assessment, which we will undertake. There's a cost to that, and it's not included in the 70. 70 is the contribution for the actual works, that would be my understanding. So it's that plus that. What is the other figure? Time and money.
Thank you. Through the chair, just answering the councillors' queries there. In terms of the Manawatu Marine Boating Club, the contribution they are suggesting is 20,000 of that $70,000 quote from Caldo Builders. In terms of Horizons Regional Council, they were approached in early May about this issue about the wharf and and potentially contributing. We haven't had an answer from Horizons. I did reach out to them again in the last sort of 4 days to ask the question again about whether Horizons would contribute to this work, particularly after the community board meeting a number of weeks ago. I've now just received a reply from Horizons probably in the last half an hour, giving a couple of options essentially. One being that the Marine Boating Club, potentially with HDC assistance, putting an application into the freshwater fund that they have, which closes on the 30th of June, so very shortly, but we would have an answer on that by the 4th of August, I believe. The other option that they provided in that email was for a direct conversation with their regional council, with a deputation potentially from either the community board or our council.
Thank you. I just wonder if the mover of the amendment would be open to additions within that resolution. I guess without it, I wouldn't support it.
So you've indicated that you want to amend the amendment. No? Yeah.
Motion on the table. That's right. Yes. So we've got to see whether that motion actually progresses. Okay. So, but this is just your initial speech in favour of what you're proposing. Yeah.
Why we should look at raising it back up to $70,000.
Okay.
Yeah. Speak up. Thank you. Yeah. Right. Thanks, Your Worship, and thanks, councillors. As the Chief Executive has said, this is not a council asset, but it's a community asset, and it's a highly valued strategic community asset. And an endeared frustration for mine is the hands-off approach of the regional council, because the wharf that was built by the community many years ago and is actually owned on behalf of the community by the Manawatu Marine Boating Club, who maintain most of the day-to-day stuff on the wharf, do minor maintenance as they can within the money they've got. And that wharf actually provides a huge amount of a buffer from erosion from that floodable dynamic river system that the Manawatu River is, one of the largest river catchments in the country. And without that wharf there, the erosion on that car park would be immense and would continue to erode, just as the southern side of the western side of the wharf, the car park did a couple of years ago, where Freehold and Count Money Boat Club dock, a little bit of money they had left from a legacy project out there, and council contributed and collaborated to repair. And that was because of the failure of an old wharf on that side that was, again, built in the community probably way back in the 50s or earlier, had failed and was eroding the car park. So the council maintained the car park. We do the seal, we do the painting of the car park lines, we mow the lawns, we do everything there, we provide the lighting for the community. So in effect, the whole asset is maintained by council apart from the actual wharf structure. But it's used by a huge amount of people. And I would suggest in my time living down there for 20 odd years, a quarter of the use of that wharf would be by Marine Boat Club members. The other 75% would be from visitors to our rohi, from the community itself, and hosts many events and again a gathering point and a strategic asset to the community. So what we've got on the western side of the thing, as you'll see in the photos, is a failing of that particular part of the structure. It was built in the mid-70s, and the current contractor, Kaudo Builders, Rudy Kaudo, remembers being in there with the people who built that wharf, which is actually a very strong structured wharf. What has happened in between it, the concrete structure, what's happened in between it is over the years the water ingress has got in certain places, and the in between the structure, the space between in the structure was filled with fine granules, grains, and sand and gravel, etc. And the water egress in there is slowly eaten that away and taken it away. Therefore, you've had the collapse of the top platform. The repair mechanism is quite straightforward, and you'll see from Kaudo's how he would repair that, putting some strong concrete beams through it and filling it with ballast, which would fill that gap and provide it would compacted ballast, which won't allow water ingress, fill the gaps that are letting the water in, and then lay the top with all the material he's quoted for there. And so a simple repair solution for something that's again a strategic asset. In terms of I'll speak to the report separately, Your Worship, because that is another item. So I'll speak to the repair that separately. In terms of the funding, what we're looking for, as you've heard, $20,000 from the boat club, which I believe is fair, and which would leave $50,000 potentially from the freeholding account. And that is believed to be the cost of fixing the project. Kaudo Builders have committed to operating within that budget. The up to 70,000 would be for any unplanned issues, of which there appears to be none. If in fact we got $20,000 from Horizons, that would take the contribution from the freeholding account back down to 30,000, which would be within the policy of 50% of the project. But given the circumstance and the absolute urgency to get this repair done, because if we leave it for 3 more months and we get another flood, the concern is what will happen to that structure in its current state. So we're urging that certainly that the advice from the boat club and the contractor is that this shouldn't be delayed any further, because the further it gets delayed and the wharf decays in its current state, is the higher the cost of it's going to be. In terms of going outside the policy, outside the policy, but in terms of it being a community-led project by the boating club, the only cost to council is providing funding to allow the repair to happen. There's no other cost to council. And we've done it before previously in that environment, once for the community centre in terms of providing the funding for the 3-bay garage at the community centre. That's a community-led project that we provided funding to. And the other one was the Fox and Beach Bowling Club a few years ago, where a major repair was required on the greens, and council endorsed the funding to assist that organisation to do their repair. We didn't manage the repair, didn't need to, and they've been both good community outcomes, as I believe this one will be. Certainly comes back to having the flexibility in the funding to get the repair done, and I'm sure Mr. Hester will continue to, and perhaps the CE will continue to advocate to Horizons to apply some funding to it, and therefore would reduce the amount of funding that the community board through the freehold account would need to apply to it. But it's just urgent to get the repair done. The cost will be a lot greater if we do not do that. In terms of DOC, I can give my views on the DOC involvement. We will not get funding from DOC, even though they own the land, and that's a whole new conversation. They own the land that the boat club sits on, and the lawns around it. I guess it would be a legal case to see who actually owned the land that the wharf sits on. So that would be an interesting one. We haven't been there, but DOC will not fund that kind of asset, and they've made it clear that they won't. And I think that's for that reason we probably haven't approached them any further. So again, they have a right to reply. Happy to any further debate.
Thank you. Councillor Tamiha.
Kia ora, well, I'll raise my point this time now, because it is in here. Number 10, iwi considerations. It says in here again about the review process around the Foxton freeholding account. And so again, we're going to be in breach of our own policy, and I don't take the excuse that we step outside when we have to. But what I would like to note for our CEO is I'd like a step-by-step document to tell me how that engagement is happening. I'd like to know who and how we're engaging that review process. And I really would like a step-by-step understanding of what it is our CEO and our staff are doing with the people we're asking and have agreed to the review process happening. That will inform councillors actually, because I just feel like that wording there is becoming a slogan. It's just becoming a catchphrase to say, oh, we've got a review going on with iwi, but what does it actually look like? What does it feel like? What are we going to get out of that review? Because actually what I'm hearing is there is no process. So I definitely, first and foremost, would like to have clarification.
I've got a point of order, Councillor Tamiano. Councillor Brennan.
Me? You?
Yeah. Just this debate's about the repair to the wharf, not the review of the policy. Yeah. It's not about the repair to the wharf, not the review of the policy. That's a separate conversation, and I think it's moving away from what the debate needs to be about.
No, I disagree with Councillor Brannigan. This is related to the policy, because we are, again, you're seeking if you like, a difference to that policy and putting your motion. So the policy is linked to the item. So I'm going to disallow that point of order. Thank you.
If I could carry on, I want to know if there's any conflicts of interest in this conversation, because not only are we sitting here talking about the Manawatu Boating Club, the Coast Guard are also users of this facility, and I'm actually going to share a bit of background around the wharf, because I know Hapu have been pushing really hard around what's being used at the wharf. They don't understand why it happens. And I'll just give you an example. Why don't we go and talk to Profat that keep launching their big multi-million-dollar launches out there, but don't contribute to the maintenance and upkeep of our space? Why don't we talk to Michael Hill and ask him, is he willing to contribute for the damage and what's happened out there? Because I'll tell you now, the damage that's occurred on that wharf has actually been happening since those rather large waka have been launched on our wharf. So, let's do some due diligence here, but let's stick to the rules. So that's my point of order that I wanted to raise. I do want to know exactly how we're going to engage this review, because that is going to be a catalyst to how we use that freeholding fund in the future, and we don't just use it as a prop-up tool. Kia ora.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Through you, Your Worship. Councillor Tamahana raises really good questions about the process to review the Foxton Beach freeholding account. While the Te Awaho Foxton Community Board have endorsed a review, and which has then further been endorsed by this table, the scope and process of that review has not been developed or endorsed by the Community Board or by Council. The intent is to bring a report to the Community Board, which will then come to Council, that talks through the options around the way in which we carry out that review, because what we know is that the intent is for it to be a partnership with Hapu, and that means that the review needs to be carried out differently to the way in which the review has been carried out back in 2016 from memory, which didn't result in a different policy. We still have the policy from 2009. I know that Community Board members, and I expect Hapu and no doubt councillors will feel frustrated that it feels like it's taking time, and that is a reflection on the capacity of the organisation, where we don't have additional funding to do this work, and it is above and beyond the normal work program, and that is something that we're giving consideration to, so that when we bring you options, you can understand that if we do this properly, A, what it will cost, but B, if we want to do it with pace, what that might mean in terms of trade-offs, particularly for the Te Awaho Foxton Community Board. So, Councillor Tamihana, you can anticipate that report will land on council table before the end of August.
Michael Hill and Profab.
I just wanted to ask a question around risk, based on some of what I've heard from the mover, and that is in regards to flood protection, and if something were to happen in 2 to 3 months, did you say? If someone was to get hurt, like let's just say that broken part just went whoosh, and hypothetical, and someone or something significant was damaged, who's liable? And seeing we don't own it, because in a way, when it comes to risk, it's like, but we knew about it, but we didn't do anything. Like that to me is, I'm concerned, even though we don't own it. So could you provide the risk lens, and please?
Through your worship, DOC is the owner, ultimately has some responsibility here, but also the lessee, the current lessee, being the boating club. What I would add is that while it's not a council asset, because we do maintenance on that asset, we have a PCBU responsibility when our contractors are on site. That is why we've taken the action we have in order to assist with making sure that the mitigation was in place around the fencing off of the dangerous part of the aspect of the asset. I know that Mr. Hester has been engaging with our health and safety advisor just to make sure that from our perspective we're we're taking all reasonable steps to manage the risk, because it is a risk, but we're not the only organisation that should be thinking about that risk.
Councillor Grimston.
Look, I appreciate you've just had a response inside the last 30 minutes. Have you had a chance to, or are you aware of the freshwater grant policy that they've referred to, and what is the likelihood that this sort of wharf project would fit within the confines of
Through you, Mr. Chair. Horizons have directly, referenced that document for us to apply to, so that gives you a clue that there is that it is viable for us to apply for this work. When I had a quick look at this, the guide for this fund itself, it did say slipways. So I think in that sense that the Foxton Wharf would meet that criteria.
And look, sort of another supplementary questions that I'd asked around the potential cost for a structural assessment, and you've provided a range of time and cost to the organisation in order to do it. What I'm really kind of, I guess, seeking assurances about, if we go spend $70,000 or up to $70,000 or up to $35,000, really doesn't matter, that we're actually not just throwing good money after bad, in terms of, are we certain that the fix that Caldo's has put on the table and costed is fit for purpose and is suitable, that we're not back here in 2 years' time relitigating it because we haven't had a structural assessment, or have we had a structural assessment completed in the past that could give a level of comfort?
I'm happy to answer that, Sean. I don't think we can give you that assurance because in the absence of a structural assessment, I think it would be unfair to expect officers to give that assurance. It's not our asset, and we don't have budget to just go and do the structural assessment. Hence why it's been so important that this come to the table, albeit I understand the complexity of it.
Councillor Boyle.
Well, everyone else had a go, so I thought I'd join in. So 2021, didn't we spend a whole bunch of money on this wharf? And we took 73k from the freeholding account for that. In 2019, we funded the Tonkin and Taylor report on how to fix this issue, I assume, or a similar issue. We funded that report. The rest of the repairs were funded by the boat club, according to the news article. And the news article also said that ongoing costs for upgrades and repairs would be funded as part of the upcoming LTP. To quote Councillor Jennings from the time, he said we should send the invoice to DOC for the repairs and ask for a letter of thanks. So the boat club own this wharf. Their website says when you're a member you get to use this wharf. It says they've got 800 members, says it charges them $90 a year, that's $72k. That's pretty good. They're an incorporated society. You can look at their finances online. They've got money. They've got 300 grand in the bank. Why don't they pay for this if this is their asset? Without getting into the policy at all. That's kind of my thoughts on it. It's not our asset.
So, okay, so I'm now going to give Councillor Brannigan the right of reply, but if there's others first that want to speak, just Councillor Barker.
Notourproblem.com. I agree. Basically, it's not our asset. The boat club's got a lot of money. They basically use it. This is really, I don't see how this is our problem at all. So, yeah.
Councillor Brannigan, you have your right of reply.
All right. Notourproblem.com. It's interesting. Really, really interesting. So here we have an asset that's strategic to our community. We've got an asset that's supposedly owned by the boat club, and in fact it's owned by the boat club on behalf of the community because nobody else owns it. We don't own the car park or the lawns that sit on that land, but we maintain it. We reseal it, we mow the lawns, we keep the area tidy because it's a strategic asset to our community. If the boat club have to pay for the whole maintenance and refurbishment of the wharf, they then should have the right, surely, and if councillors around this table are okay for this, to put fences up and a gate and say enter by boat club membership only. The wharf itself is used, estimation, 25% of the time by boat club members. The rest of the time it's used by the public. There's no impediment for the public using that area that we say is owned by the boat club. It's only owned by the boat club because nobody else owns it. Docs don't want to borrow it. This council will be happy to promote our community as one of the tourist attractions of this district to one of the highest strategic valued amenities that we have in terms of people using it. And we say, not our problem, seriously. Is that a council? Is that what this council has come to? Seriously, not. In terms of Councillor Talahana's reference to Profab, interesting. Profab a number of years ago committed $250,000 of expenditure to upgrade that wharf, the launching area of the wharf. Not the bit that's failed, plainly, but the launching area of the wharf, to allow the launching of those big boats, which bring a huge amount of bonus economy to our district, and certainly to our community up there. And as a big events, as you know, Michael Hill was simply a customer of Profab, so they have contributed. If that was $250,000 wasn't spent on that launching area of that wharf, no doubt there would have been another approach at some stage to the community board for some funding to help keep that amenity alive. All we're asking for is one, to support the community board resolution of up to 35k. What I'm asking for is for us to consider up to $70,000 to allow the work to be done. Because if that wall fails, that part of that wall fails, erosion will happen, and we lose an amenity that will cost many, many more thousands of dollars to repair. And the guarantee it will come back on this council table at some stage for some joint funding, because it is a huge community asset. And I think our community would be horrified if we didn't support some expenditure to support the work that needs to be done up there. In terms of the repair structure, we'll talk about that in the next resolution that's required. Yes, there has been repairs done on the other side, Councillor Boyle. It was not to the wharf, it was to an eroded embankment that was eating out the car park that we maintain, and we will contribute. The four organisations contributed to that repair, which was just done by the same contractor, but part of it on that western facing wharf was a repair required exactly the same as what's required here. And if anybody's taken the time to go up and have a look rather than look at photos, you'll see that repair is done to a very high standard and will certainly support the ongoing use of that wharf for many decades to come. I've spoken to the contractor. He's highly confident of the repair mechanism. The CEO is right. We don't have any other comfort from that. But if you look at the work that's been done on the other side, that was under a council led by council project, this will be done to the same standard, and believe that it will be certainly sufficient to last for decades to come, even in that dynamic environment. So, not much more I can say on this one. I just hope we support it.
Okay, thank you. So the recommendation on the table is that council approve up to $70,000 from the Foxton Beach freeholding account as an exception to its policy to fund the remediation of Foxton Beach Wharf, noting the current loss of the high recreation value amenity and the potential danger posed by the current condition of the wharf.
I have a mover and a seconder, so I'll ask for a show of hands for those in favour. One, two, three. Noting that Councillor Jennings is still on. Oh, and he's voting in favour. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Call for a division.
Certainly. We'll call for a division's called for. Councillor Jennings voting for. Thank you. Councillor Brannigan. Councillor Young.
Against.
Councillor Grimstone.
Against.
Councillor Tukapua.
For.
Councillor Barker.
For.
Councillor Horitapa.
Against.
Councillor Boyle.
Against.
Councillor Tamihana.
Against.
Councillor Olsen.
For.
Councillor Deputy Mayor Allen.
For.
And I will vote for.
So it's 7 for and 5 against.
So the motion is carried 7-5.
7-5.
Yes, thank you. 7-5. 12 of us here today. Thank you. So moving on to 2.5, the council funded structural assessment of the Foxton Beach Wharf and develop a plan to remediate the wharf and approach related parties such as DOC and Horizons to jointly fund the remediation work as recommended by Te Awaho Foxton Community Board. Do I have a mover? Council? Sorry? Yeah, you want to move an amendment? Yes. So, Perry, did you? So, are you? Let Ross go. Okay. Ross go.
Roscoe or Roscoe?
Ross go. Councillor Brannigan.
Thank you, Mr. I'll keep this one really short. As previously communicated, this is not a council project. We're just asked to contribute some funding for it. You've heard my commentary around the repair solution recommended by county contractors who's experienced and proven to have expertise in this environment. He is confident, the boat club are confident, I am confident that this is a good repair solution knowing the environment as we do. And I certainly wouldn't support council funding a further report.
Please.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Not fund a structural assessment of all of that. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So you're saying the council not fund a structural assessment? Okay. All right. So Councillor Olsen is seconding there.
Sorry.
Yeah, you don't change it to a negative. No. The advice I've received is that we don't change an amendment to say either yes or against or for. So you either vote against a resolution or you vote for a resolution. You don't amend a resolution to have a negative in there, if you like, or a positive. Okay. So the initial resolution stands. If it's lost, then that's what you're basically seeking. Okay. So, well, no, there's no mover or seconder yet. So, yes, please. So, I haven't, the motion's not on the table yet, okay? So, do I have a mover and a seconder for the motion 2.5? There being none, then the motion is taken from the table. Is there any further resolution that people wish to put?
Just a question of our chief executive.
A question?
Yeah.
Certainly.
And that would be, well, other than the report, I've heard from the table that through two speakers that there was a Tonkin and Taylor report in the past. However, I guess Councillor Brannigan sort of said that particular work that was undertaken was a different part of the wharf, not the same part, so that's been addressed and fixed. But then as the mover providing background or wanting to go not fund it, an assessment and saying, oh, we don't need it, my question is, what is your advice that we can proceed with the works, given that we've, by majority, chose to fund it through that account, now not doing an assessment, but doing it anyway? Like, I want to understand from your, technical and advice in general, risk, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Through you, Your Worship, look, I draw elected members' attention to page 149 of your audit paper, which summarises some additional commentary which is in the initial report from the reporting officer when this initially went to Te Awaho-Whakeston Community Board. The wharf itself is in poor condition and the structural integrity is unknown. My view is that the appropriate way forward is for a structural assessment to be carried out. Now, whether that is carried out and funded by council is obviously what the resolution has just been lost. I think that it is, we have a duty to at least get all the partners around the table, being DOC, Horizons, Hapu, the Boating Club, and council, to have a conversation about the wharf itself. And I'm just looking over to Mr. Hester to confirm that that would be our advice.
In that case, could I move a motion, a new one, and it might get lost, and I'm okay with that. Lisa tried, and that would be to direct the chief executive to meet with executive leaders of Horizons and other parties, including the Manawatu Marine Boating Club, about a fair contribution to fund a structural assessment within the next 3 months to proceed with the works already having budget or something to that effect. Yeah.
Can we just ask maybe the chief executive or Sean, are those conversations already happening, or would this be a new addition to what is?
Thank you, Your Worship. Conversations have been more on a one-to-one basis with different agencies at the moment. As I said, I approached Horizons. We approached Horizons in May and also just recently as well in the last week. We haven't brought everyone together around the table, but it is a fair suggestion given the different stakeholders involved.
Councillor Tukapua, I just wondered whether you also wanted to add the Department of Conversation to ensure that they were in that as
For
well.
sure. I just made sure Horizons were in there. But
Yeah.
And the rationale really is, well, you've heard the advice, but also
Before you do that, you've moved this. Do I have a seconder for this?
So can I just clarify what the purpose of getting around to the table is to?
Well,
Council direct the chief executive to meet with the executive leaders of Horizons and other parties, including the Manawatu Marine Boating Club and the Department of Conversation, within the next 3 months to progress.
For their commitment to the contribution for the assessment and get on with the work, like within 3 months. Well, not really, but so I mean, because the dilemma is, we just get on with the work with that risk in mind, or we do the assessment and still do the work. Like, the work is going to get done, and I accept that it's a timing thing, and it's either now or 3 months. But I'm not sure I mean, everyone
So-
can decide, right?
What I think Councillor Brenning is going to bring up is that we've allocated funding to repair the ongoing issue that we have at the wharf. So now you're asking us to postpone that for 3 months while we get everyone around the table?
So the officer's answers to Clint's earlier question is that the assessment alone will cost between $40,000 and $100,000, and I'd probably lean on the upward of that. Same with the actual works. You're looking at an overall, but due to escalations is all we hear these days, a $200,000 job. So I'm just trying to I guess, for a level of comfort and to get the job done. I realise the urgency, but and I don't want to complicate it, but I'm not prepared to wear the risk if the flood thing happens or something serious happens and we don't do the job right properly and people are hurt or stuff gets damaged further. At least we've had a debate about it and we own the decision that we collectively make.
So, therefore, the resolution that Councillor Tukapura is proposing is that Council direct the Chief Executive to meet with executive leaders of Horizons and other parties, including the Manawatu Marine Boating Club and the Department of Conservation, within the next 3 months to progress commitment to undertaking a structural assessment. Is that what you're seeking? Well, that's not a project. No, we need to you're just asking for that meeting to be held to understand progress or establish progress in terms of undertaking that assessment. Do I have a seconder for that question? I need to get it on the table first.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Councillor Barker's seconded. Now open for questions.
Well, not a question, but can we have the iwi hapu added to that list, not as another?
Sure. Comfortable with that? The mover and seconder? That we add iwi hapu?
It's on the table.
Does it just say as soon as possible then?
I thought it's on the table. Your wish.
Okay, it is on the table. The mover did agree to up to within the next 3 months. Yeah. Okay. So any questions regarding the matter? Well, questions first.
CEO?
Yep. Any questions?
Question for the CE. See what mandate, since we now heard around this table that we don't own the structure. Some councillors around the table plainly people are bar of it. So where does our mandate come to fund or lead a assessment on what we claim is not our property?
So through
We're simply providing funding to a community organisation, as we have for other community organisations from the freeholding count to carry the project. So I'm just confused.
Through your worship. So as I understand the resolution, this isn't about directing council to fund the structural assessment. It's about asking the chief executive to get everyone around the table to I suppose emphasise the potential consequence of not doing anything and see whether we can find a way forward around structural assessment of the wharf. During the course of this debate, a council officer who's watching online has not reminded me, but he's brought my attention to a piece of work that Profab did complete in 2015. I understand it's for one end, and so it might not be starting from scratch, it might be there's some existing stuff we can work upon, but whether this resolution is passed or not, I don't infer that as council doing it. I infer that as council playing a leadership role in trying to get everyone around the table, which you could argue, Councillor Brannigan, is for the same reasons that council approved the funding, and that is because it's an important community asset that council wants to make sure they've done the right thing by.
supplementary. If I could, please. Right. So on that front, have council officers recently, at any time during this course of this work from the community board to now, community meeting to now, become aware of this project, obtained the previously completed Tonkin and Taylor report on this wharf structure? Because my submission is that the report's already been done, and one of the repair solutions for the existing work that was done on the western embankment is so similar to this, and the repair solution was exactly the same as this. Part of that was exactly the same as this. So they could save a whole lot of issues, and can we undertake to have a look at that report and see if that suffices in terms of the work's already been done by Tonkin and Taylor? Because my submission is it probably will.
Through you, Your Worship, like the answer to your question is no at a detailed level, because remembering like our job has been to progress something from the community board. What I would say is that by bringing everyone together, including some of that historical information that exists from Tonkin and Taylor, from ProFab, like we might not need to go do the structural assessment. We don't want to go spend anyone's money if we don't need to, right? But I think that what you're hearing from Councillor Tukapura and what officers have alluded to in the report that went to the community board and to council is we can't give you assurances that what the boating club are going to do to fix the asset is going to work, because we don't have assurance. Like, we can't give you that assurance because we haven't done the structural assessment. And so this is, I think this is potentially an additional step in satisfying those requirements. But it doesn't need to go to the step of actually paying someone some money to do the structural assessment if we get round the table and it's actually all okay.
Okay, the matter's on the table now, open for debate. Anyone wish to have their say?
Probably enough for me anyway, but
Councillor Brannigan.
It's certainly, it's simply, in my view, I get it from the CE and Mr. East. I get it, I understand. I still say that we claim it's not an asset. We don't have a mandate to do a structural assessment on it, although one's previously been done in my view. But certainly I won't support the resolution, but if it happens, I'm okay with it. What I'm not okay with is 4, 5, 6 months down the track trying to hold up a project that urgently needs doing now. And I guarantee if we're back around this table in 6 months' time, because that work hasn't able to be done, asking for more money, I get a feeling that it ain't going to be forthcoming. So I guess...
Councillor Buck.
I was persuaded by Councillor Brannigan's excellent oratory to change my point of view. Turns out it is ourproblem.com. So it seems to me we've got it's a bit complex here, and it's covering a whole lot of stuff off, and I don't know how we actually fix this. Is it the horse before the cart? I mean, yeah, sure. I was persuaded that it's not, we don't own it, but it is an asset and it is important. So getting on with fixing it is one thing, but in order to get on to fix it, do we have to find out how broken it is? Is that what the structural report, the purpose of it? And if that's the case, then I think it's important that we do that. But it's still pretty grey and cloudy about ownership and responsibility. So getting, if as part of that process about getting all the parties around the table, could be useful in ironing out just who is responsible, who has a financial responsibility, and if we're going to get involved, maybe we can develop a memorandum of understanding around this asset, as part of that, because it's going to be an ongoing thing. So that's my 10 cents worth.
More valuable than 2 cents. Anyone else?
Just to add though that I did support the previous motion. Two main reasons is we can't not act, we can't not do something because of the level of urgency and the integrity of it and the safety that it will provide once it's fixed. And while we don't own it, the perception by and large from community will be that we had a role to play, and if something were to happen and they know that we knew and we didn't do anything, gosh, I'd expect them to be banging on our door telling us, you know what. And if the Foxton community, because that fund, right, it's for the Foxton Beach, and if they don't pay for it, we all will have to, district-wide, it'll come around, there's an LTP around the corner, but it requires urgency. Now this, though, yeah, I prefer to do it right, like I'm uncomfortable not knowing. But hey, if there's reports that are uncovered or we find that actually we've got enough information, we can get on with it, let's get on with it. I mean, I've heard the chief executive, you know, things can still proceed. We don't, you know, if they're not going to play, you know, participate, shame on them. I'm talking about Dock and Horizons. So I think the work can still be done ultimately, and that's why I'd still have that as a level of assurance and to cover ourselves around the risks.
Councillor Moore. Procedural motion, item of business to be laid on the table. Not discussed at this meeting. Further information gathered, such as do we have the reports already? Procedural motion, so we just vote on it. The motion on the table is disposed of if I win. So,
We now move to 9.2, which is the proceedings of the Rating and Financing Review Task Force from the 7th of June. Move 2.1, 2.2, that the report be received and that we receive the minutes. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Are there any questions or clarification sought on that report? And then moving to 9.3, the proceedings of the Three Waters Transition and Planning Task Force.
Move. Oh, sorry, I didn't put the motion. All those. Did I put that motion? I did. Okay. Sorry. 9.3. Proceedings of the Three Waters Transition and Planning Task Force from the 7th of June. Move 2.1, 2.2 that they be received and the minutes be received. Seconded by Councillor Young. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Any questions and clarifications sought there? There being none, that is the end of our open agenda. I'll now move that we move to in committee, that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of the motion. 1, to C1, the procurement of the rating valuation services. C2, the procurement of our energy contract renewal. C3, Fox and Paul's project financial update. And C4, the President and Vice President LGNZ vote. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Allen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you to those online. And thank you everybody. We'll take an adjournment for 15 minutes. Be back at 4 o'clock. Thank you.